How will your child respond to you taking them out of public school to homeschool them? Well, this second part of my three-part video series on transitioning your child from public school to homeschool and on homeschooling in general provides a glimpse from my daughter, now in her 20s, as she reflects back on her experience and memories from not only when she switched in second grade, but way beyond that. Hey, I'm Kathleen Rumford, software developer and entrepreneur who turned into a homeschooling mom for 15 years of two daughters. To make sure you don't miss any of my videos, please subscribe to my channel. By you liking, commenting, and or subscribing, you're telling YouTube that this was valuable and they'll push it out to help more homeschoolers. So in part one of this series, I shared why we chose to homeschool. I asked my daughter to respond with her thoughts and memories from a homeschooled child's perspective. Kayla, would you share how you felt about being taken out of public school to begin homeschooling in second grade?
So I do remember being bored in kindergarten and first grade, and I remember that the teachers had to give me extra work because I was finishing my work too early. I remember that. And so I remember the academic part of school being a little bit boring, but the social part of it making up for it. And so I really enjoyed like lunchtime and recess and having my friends there. And a lot of my friends that I went to school with were also on my street, and so I had friends that I could play with after school, and so we had all those shared experiences of school. So if my initial reaction to being homeschooled as a second grader was not liking it so much, that's why that was happening, because I was missing the social aspect of it. And as a new homeschooler with my mom like just trying to figure it out, I'm sure it was kind of like, okay, we're gonna see what works. But in those early stages, as homeschool parents, you're just piecing together, trying to find your groove, figuring out what works. So I imagine at the beginning it was less social for us until we started getting plugged into co-ops and stuff. And so with my initial response being, no, I don't like this, why am I being homeschooled? The other thing was I didn't know anybody else who was homeschooled. So until we started meeting people, of course, but like to me, I was like, what are you doing? Like, I want to go see my friends. Why are we doing this homeschool stuff? And so that was because we hadn't found our groove, I think, because it quickly turned into me something that I ended up loving. But that was my initial response because of the social aspect, because of not knowing anybody else who had done it. It just felt like a weird decision.
Now, in part one of this series, I mentioned that I asked you to write a pro and con list of public school versus homeschool because you were somewhat resistant and negative about homeschooling. Do you recall what was on your list that led you to realize homeschooling wasn't as bad as you thought?
So I don't remember making that list, so I don't remember what was on it. Again, like I was 8 years old. I have other memories that have come in since then, but it would be cool to see that list. What I can remember is I remember like quickly learning the pro of having so much more free time. I don't know at what point we made the list, if we had already started doing co-ops and stuff, but once we started doing co-ops and I had a lot more social interactions and like things to look forward to each week, like, okay, every Friday we're going to do this, or on Wednesdays I'm going to go to this class with other kids and then we're going to go play at the park. When I had that just built into my week, I think that really, really helped me because I just knew that there was going to be friends involved. And like I had said earlier, that I didn't know anybody else who was homeschooled, so it felt weird that we were homeschooling. Well, once I met other kids or other families that were homeschooling, it all kind of made more sense to me. It felt less of a random thing that just my family was doing, and it felt more like this thing we were part of, this like whole like collective movement of other families who are doing it. So that was a huge pro on my list, I'm sure, was that we were gonna be able to still have a ton of social opportunities and like field trips and co-ops in classes. So that would have been big on my list. And then the other thing was that we finished school a lot quicker than it would be in a typical school day when you're in a classroom at a school sitting for 6 hours a day of school, versus we could finish in, let's say, 3.5 hours, 4 hours. And then I have extra time to do whatever I want and develop my own hobbies. And then I could still go and play with my friends. Remember, I was 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old. I could go and still play with my friends on my street once they were home from school and done with their homework. But I think I started to see, like, okay, by the time they get home after their 6 hours of school, they still have to do their homework, and they still won't be free to play until like 2 hours after they get home. And I think it showed me that, oh my gosh, so much of their day is going to school and then homework, and then they can play, which is great. I couldn't wait for them to be able to play. But I started seeing that, like, if I was in school doing the same thing, my schedule would be the same, and my free time would have been really, really small. So as much as like I wanted them to be done as soon as they could so that we could play, you know, kickball, all the outdoor stuff, capture the flag, all the stuff we would play outside, I had already had a good amount of free time to work on other hobbies like drawing. I really liked drawing, or playing Legos, or computer games. Like, I had so much more free time to develop my own hobbies, or just enjoy being a kid and not have to put so much of my time each day into schoolwork.
Okay, so what do you want parents to know about that time? Or what can you suggest that they might do to help their child who may have some resistance to homeschooling?
I would say that, one, keeping your child in open conversation about like, what is it that your family is doing and why. So for me, like I said, I was like, no one else does this. What's going on? I don't remember being super included in the conversation. I know my mom was also just she was wrestling through, like, should we do this? Should we not? But I think if the kid is being incorporated into the conversation, not necessarily given the choice, like, because I probably would have said, no, do not homeschool me. What are you talking about? But if she had told me, like, okay, I know that this is a hard transition for you, and I want you to know that I know you're missing your friends. I know you're missing the social aspect of school, but we are going to get plugged into co-ops where there's going to be other kids your age, a little older, a little younger, your age. We're going to see them weekly. You're still going to be able to like see friends multiple times a week as we do school. Don't worry that there's not going to be social aspects, because there absolutely will be. We're going to be able to do field trips. I think that would have been like, oh, cool. Like, if I knew that right off the bat, I don't know if I would have had as much of a hard time of like transitioning into it. Also, the reminder of, and your friends are still here on the street. You can still play with them. We can still do play dates. You just won't be seeing them at school, because we'll be doing school here at home and with our homeschool groups. So knowing that, I think for a kid would be really helpful. And then the aspect of free time, if that had kind of been almost the lure of it, like, okay, and so guess what? You know how that you've been going to school and you have to sit at a desk for 6 hours a day. Yeah, you get some recess time, but it's like 30 minutes. What if I told you that you were going to be able to finish school here with us daily? We're going to be able to do everything in like 3.5 hours, 4 hours. And then you get to pick your recess. You can do recess. You can play Legos. You can go outside. We can go on walks. We can go on hikes. We can go on day trips to places. We're going to be able to have so much more flexibility and free time by homeschooling. And you'll be able to get your schoolwork done so much quicker, more efficiently, and more specifically tailored to that child's learning style. Would have probably been alluring to me even as a kid, knowing that I was going to have all that free time. So I think that that's what a parent should know. Also, that it's going to take a little bit of time to find your groove. And again, maybe keep the child in conversation with that. Like, okay, so I know, and this sounds like that is what my mom did when she had me make the pros and cons list, like keeping an open conversation, checking in, doing like an update, like, how do we think we're doing? What would you want to change? What should we? So just keeping the child in conversation with it and checking in and tweaking things, because as you're going about it, the first year is just about finding your groove. So that's another thing that a parent can know going into it, and also keep the child like aware of that. This is new for me too. This is new for me as the parent. This is new for you. And so we're going to have to kind of find what works. So let's just keep open conversation about it. Another thing that I realized that, and this is something that I've heard from so many other homeschool parents as well, because again, like, I'm starting to look into it for my own family now that I have a daughter, is that you don't need to recreate school at home. It's almost like, then why do we need to homeschool if the whole point is to just do more of what's already being done in school, like very systematic and sitting at desks and having to raise your hand to be able to speak? Because some of that is needed as you go into the real world, as you go into college and stuff, like learning some of those habits. But for the most part, those rules and kind of like systematic approach to school, it's not done because it's the best way to learn. It's done because it's the best way to keep 25 kids in check as your only one teacher. So a lot of those kind of like rule-based strategies don't need to be brought into the home. If your child doesn't do well sitting at a desk, then do it at the kitchen table, do it on the floor, do it out on a picnic table in the backyard. School does not have to look like school at home, does not need to look like school at school. So don't waste like that whole first year of getting into your groove trying to recreate school in your home. Learn however works best for your child and your family.
So hopefully that was helpful for you. Just a few points on what Kayla shared. Some things that I took away was the importance of co-ops and don't recreate school at home. Increase your communication with your child and do intermittent check-ins to see how things are going. How homeschooling is such a time saver for other things, and how mom and child, or really the whole family, gets community with other homeschooling families, and you get to know each other, build friendships and relationships, and get to know your child's friends really well, which is something that you don't really get to do in public school as much. Before you head over to part 3, where Kayla shares takeaways and insights of being a homeschooled kid in general, if you have any questions or comments, please drop them in the comment section below. And if you found the video helpful, please like the video and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss other videos related to homeschooling, parenting, and personal finance literacy for kids. Okay, head over to part 3 and I'll see you over there.